Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming. Today's January 20th, 2021. Got to make sure we say 2021. You have to get used to that. To the Police and Fire Commission meeting. It's 4:35, and due to some technical issues, we're starting a little bit late, but I'd like to call the meeting to order. A couple of things kind of before we do that. We did get from Tom O'Day as a commissioner that he has a work delay today, so he wanted to make sure he was excused, which we will do because of his work concern. And otherwise, I think we're all set. I can see everyone that we've got a full quorum, so I'll call the meeting to order. I think actually before we start approval of minutes, I would like to make one other statement in that I'd like us to remember a Capitol Police officer who passed on January 7th from injuries on January 6th. The other officers are injured. All the public servants, who are dedicated to keeping us safe, whether they be police or fire, and maybe a moment of silence or prayer, whatever you prefer in this, to remember all the public servants and for unity for the new administration, and that we move forward as a country to do what's right, and we always focus on what's right. So let's take a moment. Okay, thank you. I also should announce, I may have to go like this periodically or put sunglasses on. I had eye surgery a week ago and I have a complication from it. And so consequently my eyes are really dilated, and it's not that I want to be goofy putting these on or anything, but it is what it is. And there are times that I've got to just cover one of the eyes up. So anyways, so we've called the meeting to order. Second order of business would be approval of the minutes. Is there a motion? Okay, so Rosa? You're on mute, Rosa. Okay, she made a motion, I believe, to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I just have a question about them.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So I wasn't at the last meeting because of a work thing too. So one at a time. For this meeting, there were two references to potential hearings or information that we might get as far as presentations. One of those was from Tom O'Day. So we could follow up with him on that, because I do think it would be useful if we could have access to that. But you, Sarah, had potentially we're going to look into something as well. So did anything get yielded out of that?
Yeah, so I reached out to the league, and I also reached out to CIVMIC, who is our risk management company, and CIVMIC actually did respond. And let me let you know what they actually said here. Bear with me. All right, so I asked them if they had any access to maybe taped PFC proceedings. And they indicated that typically a due process hearing is in a closed session. And the audio may be recorded for documentation purposes, but usually a hearing would not be shared with outside bodies. So that was their understanding. So it might be almost near impossible to find a due process hearing unless we can find an example of one where it's just talking in generalities and it's not an actual case.
Does that satisfy your question, Jeff?
It does, and yeah, we could follow up with Tom, I guess, in regards to the institution, if he could get access to the presentation that he talked about.
It's good. Good to clarify that, and I assume that was a second for the meeting minutes then. Okay, I saw that. Okay, is there any discussion or other corrections on the minutes? If not, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. It's unanimous. Did anyone from the public wish to speak or sign in, Sarah?
There was no members of the public. No.
Okay. All right. With that, we'll go to item number 4, report from the police department. Chief Brecklin.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you all doing today?
Okay.
So the report from the police department you have in front of you right now shows our staffing summary as of last week, Tuesday. And we are currently full as far as our authorized staffing levels go. And you'll note in our highlights that Ashley Hegeman, who a conditional offer had been extended to her, I believe, in the November Police and Fire Commission meeting, which had been approved by you all, had started her employment on January 11th. So she's now in the field training process, which actually indicates now, as of today, that there are 2 in field training. We also have Matt Cooper, who's about a month or so into the field training process. He had graduated from Blackhawk Technical College in, I think it was on December 9th. And we were able to attend his graduation ceremony virtually. And was impressive to see that Matt was recognized for a leadership award by his academy classmates and instructors. So he did quite well in the academy, and we're certainly happy to have him on board. I also have 3 individuals who are on leave or restricted duty, one due to a off-duty injury. They're anticipated to be out of off-duty for probably another 6 months. And we also have 2 individuals who are deployed through their National Guard service. One was deployed in October. That's an approximately 1-year deployment, and one was deployed in early January also for a 1-year deployment. So we have several folks who are on extended leaves. So that's where we are currently at with everything. Does anybody have any questions in regards to our staffing? Hearing nothing. I know the agenda indicated a COVID update. I can certainly talk in some general terms. Much like any other organization, particularly public facing and public interacting organization, we've had quite a few challenges to manage since last March. Again, we're not alone in that. A lot of organizations have had to manage some things. We did quite well for the first probably 8 months of the pandemic and had very few, if any, cases or close quarantines. The last probably 6 to 8 weeks has been a little bit more challenging for us in that we've had probably a half a dozen or so total cases, maybe slightly more. Sarah might be able to provide more of an accurate number, but I would say 6 to 8 cases of positive COVID exposure in testing, which has led to some scheduling challenges there. And I am happy to report that we followed Chief Pulvermacher's lead and surveyed our staff for those interested in receiving COVID vaccination when it became available. And about 60 police department members out of a total of about 72 full and part-time department members indicated a desire to be vaccinated. So that's significantly higher than what we're seeing from police agencies nationally as far as what police officers or law enforcement employees are stating their desire to be vaccinated is. It's running nationally around 40%, which is slightly lower than I think what the general public is trending for, indicating a desire to get vaccinated. So we're significantly higher than that, which is a good thing to see. And our staff has begun the process of vaccination this week. And we're looking forward to all staff that would like the vaccination to ideally be vaccinated within the next 3 to 4 weeks. Any questions?
Yeah, I was going to just say, Chief, that's good to hear that there's a high percentage getting the vaccine. I think that's one of the ways that we'll be able to get out of this to a certain degree, is the more people we can get vaccinated, the sooner.
Sure.
Anyone else? Okay, it takes us to the closed session portion. portion. Does anybody want to make that motion?
I can.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Pursuant to section 19.85(1)(c) Wisconsin statutes, the commission will move into closed session for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. More specifically, to make recommendations for police officer.
Okay, so there's a motion. Is there a second? Rosa seconds. Okay, let's, all in favor of going into closed session, raise our hands and say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
so we're in closed session.
Your meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We voted to go back into open session and now are in open session again, and actions out of the closed session. Rosa?
And a motion to accept the recommendation of the police chief to extend the conditional offer of employment to one candidate from the current list, and to close the list after this offer is made.
Okay. Is there a second? I think I saw Jeff say it.
I second.
All right, any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, so Chief, you've got, that item covered. Trying to think, is there anything else on the, okay, yeah, so now we want to cover the authorization to begin a new officer recruitment. Chief and Sarah?
Yeah, so obviously with the closure of this current process that we are talking about here, we would like to begin another process with the intent of establishing an eligibility list. I think it's important to, since these processes take some time, to try to keep things moving so that we do have people who are potentially ready to begin employment if and when vacancies arise. So I know Deputy Chief Leahy has been working with Sarah on developing a timeline for the process. From my understanding, there's no changes to the process from what we've been utilizing that the PFC has been approving. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Yeah, so I would share my screen so you could actually see the recruitment timeline, but I changed the host to Fact TV, so I can't share my screen. Basically, we're looking at advertising on starting January 21st. Actually, we're going to put a posting out tomorrow already. We'll have it open for at least a month, and then we'll be doing the HR redaction of names. We'll get the applications to the scoring committee so they can score those supplemental questions. And then we're looking at interviews likely the week of March 15th and chief interviews the week of March 22nd. And then we hope to bring a recommendation to the April Police and Fire Commission meeting.
Okay, questions? The one thing that I think would be helpful for future reference for the commission, both Sarah and Chad, is to have that in, kind of what that outline is so we can look at it at the meeting as opposed to, kind of after the fact or simply verbally. I think that helps our, ability to, interject where we could see things could be, shored up, as it were, that might, help. So.
Yeah, actually, if you wait, I can actually share my screen. Let me see if Scott can give me rights. I have the document open and I can share it with you. Just one moment here.
Yeah.
Yes, I have a question. So there currently is not an opening, correct? We're opening this period so that in this list, just in the anticipation of, well, actually not in anticipation of their retirement, theoretically, right? So, yeah.
Correct. Yeah, we have kind of that unknown as to whether or not that conditional offer will turn out.
Mm-hmm.
If that does not turn out, then I would have a vacancy as a result of a retirement right around May 1st. And if that conditional offer does work out, that would fill that retirement right around May 1st, but that would still leave 5 retirement age eligible officers or department members. And, I am aware of at least 1 or perhaps 2 other individuals who may be in other police department hiring processes as well. So we just don't know where things will fall over the next several months.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, Scott, if you could give me rights to share, because I would like to share, oh, he's working on it. I'd like to share Joe's staffing report too when we get there. So bear with us here a little bit.
If it would be helpful from a timing perspective as well, we could table this matter and then allow Joe to go into closed session since he needs to depart.
Right, that's a great idea.
Okay, yeah, good suggestion, Chief.
Hey, Sarah, did you, were you able to provide the COVID report that we provide to department heads and electeds?
So that can be forwarded to the commission, but that's a separate email that was sent out. So no, that's not part of the agenda packet.
Okay, but you have a copy, right? You'll
Yes,
be able to send it out? All right.
Right. Yep.
Okay, there's been a suggestion, if one of the commissioners would want to follow the suggestion to table this item so that we can go into closed session for the fire department.
I move that we
Okay.
table the subject and
Okay, come back up, okay, and then second, okay, and we need to vote on that. So let's table that. I think it's by unanimous consent, and then let's move to go into closed session for the fire department. Pursuant, and somebody read the statute, please.
Sure, I can. Pursuant to section 19.851C, Wisconsin statutes, the commission will move into closed session for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation for any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. More specifically, to discuss probationary status of a paid on-call firefighter.
Okay, is there a second?
second.
Okay, Rosa seconds. Okay, all those in favor of going into closed session, let's have both the hands signal of aye and say aye. Aye. We're in closed session.
Your meeting, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. The commission is back in open session after voting to go into closed session, having a closed session, and now back in open session. There are action items out of the session. Rosa?
I move to accept the recommendation of the fire chief regarding Emily Schwarzenberger, who completed her probationary period, and she can be moved to a permanent paid on-call firefighter.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
It's okay, second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anything else from the fire department?
Yeah, I can go through our staffing report real quick and then
Okay.
the COVID update that was asked for. Let me just go to it real quick here. The main thing is our staffing is doing very well. Although it looks like we're down 14, that is consistent with our overall performance on a trending basis. We do have quite a few people expressing interest in the upcoming paid on call process. So we might actually be in a situation where we ask, I don't want to call it underperformers, but those who maybe aren't dedicating as much time to the fire service or the fire department as we would prefer, to ask them if there's still enough time in their schedule for the fire department. And that way we have an active group participating not only in training but in staffing the equipment as we need it. So we may have a list of firefighters that are interested in participating, and we're doing what we can to encourage their education so that if there is a vacancy that presents, it's a lot easier to then bring them into the fold and into the employment process. And that's actually one thing that came out of my thesis is the fact that there are some that don't necessarily have access to education. So how can we make those things readily available, encourage their participation in the fire service, try to make sure they have the exposure that allows them to make an educated decision. And then once the positions become available, they have the talent required to be able to apply. And therein lies part of the issues that existed and still do exist throughout the fire service. And that's finding a talented pool of candidates that reflect the community that you serve. And so we got to do what we can to put our best foot forward to provide that exposure and potential educational opportunities. And that's an hour-long discussion in and of itself. Sarah passed along the thesis to you that you can read, and I'd be happy to talk to you about outcomes. But getting back to the staffing report, we're going to be looking at providing you the information for our paid on call recruitment schedule in February, hopefully early February. And that'll involve giving you information about panel members and the process moving forward for paid on call. And then we're hoping to open up our intern process soon. So I would be looking for some support in that way so that we can get in front of other departments who are also looking for interns. So once again, I think that'll be an early February, looking for approval to open up our intern process. And then the last thing that I think that I have is that we've had a couple of resignations, one of which is listed on the activity report. Another one that came in after we submitted the report, and he's going to be resigning based on a medical need. But that would bring us down one additional position that's reflected on the staffing report. Other than that, with COVID, all of our firefighters have been invited to receive a vaccination. So of the 66 total 87 people on our list, only 3 have indicated that they want to hold off. They're not interested at this time. Initially, that number was higher, but given our exposure and given the fact that we haven't seen any major side effects with the administration of this vaccine throughout the country, most of our firefighters want it, and we're encouraging it. I've had 1 dose already. I will be getting my second probably in the next 3 weeks. The intent behind that is not necessarily because I provide patient care all that often. I do on occasion. God help you if I'm not kidding. I'm a very good paramedic. Just ask me. The other thing though is that it sort of provides the information that, look, we're not asking you to do something that's unsafe, and we're trying to address this based on the scientific findings of the efficacy of the vaccination. And so there are no hesitations, very few hesitations on behalf of the fire department. Then what I'll be sharing with you is the same report that we provide to the rest of our department heads and our elected officials, which basically gives you a monthly overview as far as the number of tests that were conducted throughout Dane County. Just recently, the state started releasing local data. I wasn't getting it from the county for a number of reasons. They were uncomfortable with releasing it, but we did get our local numbers as well, as far as the total number of deaths, the positives that resulted from those tests, and then the deaths associated. And you'll see that the death rate, although, I mean, you never want to see anybody die, the significance of death rate versus exposure, the ratio is pretty low. However, it still encourages the transmission of the disease when you have people that are infected, and that could create additional issues, obviously, from going back to work, going back to school. And I am not crying. That's the dog to my side who wants attention that I'm not giving her. So I apologize for any background noise. So that's about it. The other thing that we hope to be doing in the near future is, as soon as all of our firefighters have both of their vaccinations, one vaccination, 2 doses, we will be looking to get back to regular in-person training. We'll still have to wear masks. We'll still have to do all of that stuff, but the threat of transmission will be lower as a result of the steps that we've taken to reduce exposure and transmission. So that's going to be huge, because the fact of the matter is we haven't been able to train as a group for just under a year, and it's time. A lot of what we do is a team effort, and it's important that we train together. And the other thing that Sarah provides is a basic overview of how COVID has affected us citywide from a human relations standpoint. So that information will be in there. And then at the end, we always provide information about peer support, because this is psychologically taxing and people respond to it differently. And then the very last page of this report was some Q&A about the vaccine and how things got prioritized and who's receiving the vaccinations versus who isn't, and why that might be. And then just taking away some of the misnomers associated with vaccine that have a tendency of coming out, especially with the anti-vax community. We're not forcing it upon our employees. We're trying to share the positive results that we're seeing as a result of it, and moving in that direction versus mandating it at this point. I don't think that we're going to look to mandate for our employees unless something changes, and we do that in concert with HR.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Go ahead, Rosa, you got a question?
Just a question, the people that have refused the vaccine, what are their reasons for?
I typically don't get into their reasons. I suppose I could ask them, and if they volunteered that information, they could provide it to me. I think some are just a little apprehensive about trying something that hasn't been vetted through the normal medical process. But as you guys probably have been well aware, if you've been following it at all, even though it's been a reduced process, there's still a process associated with manufacturing the vaccination and its distribution. So there are some significant policies and procedures and things in place to make sure that we're doing it in an effective manner, and it's providing value. So it's not although it is not being administered at the same rate that it would typically, which would add another year or two onto the process, it is still very much something that has been tested through the scientific community. And I guess that then it just boils down to how well you trust your scientists. And in my situation, I trust the people who are putting it out.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Chief. I know you mentioned you had to leave.
I do, and the last thing that I'll say, because I know it's under your announcements, and I apologize for taking this out of order, but my graduation from the program, although is legally going to be March of 2021, my graduation with my class was December of 2020. The thesis has been accepted by the school. I'm waiting for final approvals and stamps in that regard, but from the standpoint of my advisors, everything is good to go, and I'll have no additional work to do. So that's why I'm comfortable in sharing the document with you. I've shared it with you first, and members of city staff, specifically those in, what's the name of the group that you're working with, Sarah?
Yes, the Fitchburg Diversity and Inclusion Employee Resource Group.
So we shared it with them, and some department heads and the elected officials have access to it. Once everybody has had a chance to comment, what I plan on doing early in February is releasing it to those that sat in the focus group. And what I'm sharing with people is this is a thesis, right? So some of the things that I put in there are theory based. I think there's some really good ideas in there. We're looking to implement many of the things that were recommended in the paper through a 2-year timeline. But ultimately, the success of what we do is going to be based on how well we promote it and get it out there. And I think one of the focus members that worked with the group said that the trick is in the try. It's really one thing to say that you want to do it. It's what you put into it that brings about the results that you're hoping for. And so there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, but it gives you an idea as far as where our mindset is in the way of recruiting and how we get out into the community to make sure that those that resemble our community are staffing our fire department.
Okay. Well, congratulations on your, Rosa, go ahead.
Well, I was part of the focus group. Thank you for inviting me. I started reading the thesis, and I have to say that you listened to a lot of us, and even though I haven't finished reading the whole thing, I focus on the title, and I was very happy to see it change, and it felt good.
I think if there's one thing that I needed to show, I mean, that I did like my initial title because it was eye-catching and it created a response. There were some things that were more important, and that was listening to those who are the resident experts, right? And so I appreciate the feedback, and I'm glad that you noticed it, because that's one thing that Sarah brought up too, is the fact that she appreciated the title more based on some of the things that we heard within the focus group.
Any other thoughts or comments? If not, I guess I'd like to say congratulations. It appears that you now have your master's as of December. So that's a great accomplishment, and always good to see.
And I don't think you're going to have to call me Dr. Pulvermacher, because I think that's it.
Okay.
I'll receive more education. I just don't know that. Yeah.
Well, don't hold yourself back. It's important. And I, just from my standpoint, I tried to read it, even with covering up my one eye. I'll probably send to you and Sarah some thoughts that I have as it, applies to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I realize that this is something you've already done, but I think things that might help the city on this issue. So.
Yeah, any idea is a good idea. What we can do is going to be based on our ability to basically get enough people interested in the process. And I think we've started a very good process, and I'm looking forward to some of the things that we have in store for the future.
Okay, well, thank you. Have a safe trip to, I think you were going to Endeavor.
Yep.
So have a safe trip there.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, I think so that'll complete the fire department. And so let's take the item from the table that we tabled and return to Chief Breckman. Go ahead, Chief.
We left off on the recruitment timeline.
Okay, thank you.
So I've shared my screen, and this is the recruitment timeline. So we're hoping to post hopefully tomorrow, if not by Friday at the latest, and then we'll have it open for a month. The HR will redact all of the names. We'll do the application review the first week of March. Panel interviews the week of March 15th. We'll do the preliminary background screening that same week, and then chief interviews the week of March 22nd. The full backgrounds the week of March 29th, and that gives us some time to really complete those backgrounds. And then we hope to bring a recommendation to the PFC for hiring on April 21st, with conditional offers made on April 22nd following the PFC meeting.
Okay. Well, thanks. That's helpful to have it in front of us. Are there questions from commissioners? I guess I have one in that the minimum requirements, are they the statutory under trainings and standards, or do we have some that are a little more stringent?
Nope, we follow law enforcement, the standards. So, 18 years of age, can't have any felonies, must have the associates within 5 years. So we don't have any over and beyond more strict qualification requirements.
Okay, so we can open it up to, as many applicants as we can get who meet that. So,
Absolutely. Yep.
okay, any other, Rosa?
I just have a question because I'm still struggling with the fact that, you get to the interview with the chief and we can't, and I trust the chief's judgment of, but that we can't get one from that group after they go through all of that. So I don't know if at some point there is some analysis of what the people that we're getting, what is it that they're missing, that, or how do we keep attracting the same people that have the same issues, that here we are with pretty much, a process that yielded just one person. So
So I guess I would just add a question to that. So is there I guess, do we know or do we think that that's because the pool is shrinking? Or is that because if I recall from previous recruitments, we actually had, I think, several candidates at times that were good. And I remember several recruitments where you had to choose. And it wasn't because, but the first one was typically exceptional in some way beyond the others. And it seems like that might be the case. Is that true?
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen an exceptional amount of lesser applicants with our recruitment that we had that we just closed out. It's a really hard time to be an officer right now, and to try to attract people to want to be an officer right now is extremely hard. And a lot of times, we do get, prior applicants who were police officers and maybe didn't pass probation, and we don't bar, people from applying, or, limit certain people from moving through the process just because they, for reasons like that. So it's really challenging to recruit, and it takes, a special person to be an officer, and the chief has, he knows what he's looking for and uses, job-related reasoning, for selecting candidates or not selecting candidates. So, Chief, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if you want,
oh, you're fine. You're fine. No, it's definitely challenging right now. From a pure numbers standpoint, I think we had approximately 75 applicants in the process that we just closed. And for reference, the previous several processes were running at probably right around 120 or so applicants. So we've lost, 45 or 50 applicants right there. And if you go back, 3 or 4 years ago, we were having closer to 200 applicants when we would advertise. So, if you go back to that point where we're down more than 50%, of overall total applicants. And, as Sarah said, it's challenging, to say the least, to be a police officer right now. We're trying to find and recruit the best folks that we can, obviously keeping in mind diversity and inclusion as we do so, but we really need an emphasis on communication skills, problem solving, and decision making. And a willingness to serve with fairness and respect. I mean, that's what I'm looking for in our candidates. And I hope that anybody that is applying for us goes back and plays some PFC meetings, because they will be able to talk to about some things in a Chiefs interview that I'm looking for, because I just put it out there. But those things are really challenging to find in a total package. As we talk, if folks can't come into an interview prepared, then that kind of, sets us up for, are they capable of doing this complex job? And, or if they've had issues in other places of employment, do we want that sort of individual in our department? So I'm not I'm always going to be interested in bringing in the best candidate that we can to serve the city. And unfortunately, in this particular case, we didn't get as many candidates as we would have liked. And I don't know if it'll be different in this process. But the fact of the matter is, I only need, a handful of folks to either do better in this process or new folks that set themselves apart. I'm fortunate that I'm only typically looking for a couple, 2, 3 officers or candidates at any given time that can make it through the process. And I feel for agencies who are trying to hire, 10, 20, 50, a couple hundred, because I don't know where they're finding the candidates. I honestly don't.
I have a question with this,
What-
the recent issues that we've had that in DC and the things that came up to light with law enforcement, the trust has been eroded even more. And I don't know, Sarah and Chief, if there's groups that get together to discuss what's going on and the new trends in recruitment. How do we turn this around? But I think we're going to be even in a more dire situation with what just happened.
Yeah, clearly, it doesn't look good when you have current or former police officers participating in an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, and that's certainly not something I would condone for any of our members or any law enforcement officer. And in fact, if there are police officers who have been found to have been participants in that insurrection, they should face charges just like any other person should. And that's the things that we try to avoid by doing a thorough background. I mean, we're talking to the candidates. We're checking out what is publicly available through any social media accounts that they have. We're doing a psychological assessment. We're doing that background includes checking with prior employers, trying to determine if they've had any sorts of performance-related issues or behaviors that would negatively impact their ability to meet the expectations that we have for our police officers and that the community has, because every news story we read or see about a police officer, regardless of the location in our nation, affects everyone's or potentially affects everyone's perception of police and erodes that trust that we have. It's very fragile. It has been for a while, and it's clearly fragile right now. And I'm hoping as we move into deeper into 2021 and the pandemic begins to hopefully improve to the point where we can get back out into our community in a much more outreach focus and begin to repair the trust that we've lost over the course of the last year in particular. And I want to assure our Fitchburg residents who might be listening to this that you have a very good police department and you have a very professional, competent staff who are always looking to police in a fair and respectful manner. And if there are ever any concerns related to the policing that someone has experienced or observed, they are welcome to contact me. My email address is listed on the city's website, and obviously they can contact our dispatch center and ask to speak to me, and they'll get put into my voicemail. But by all means, we are paying attention to what happens in our country. We are paying attention to what is happening in our profession, and we are committed to demonstrating what we feel is the fair, impartial, and respectful way to police the Fitchburg community.
Thank you, Chief, and other commissioners for, I think a summary of where this is at. In particular, to look at the timeline for the recruitment and whatnot, I'd like to, go back because I think there's a good plan here. I think one of the things, if I look at step 4, in particular the panel interviews, the importance of having, basically citizens, officers, basically a team approach on those panels, making sure that we have diverse panels. I know you plan on that, Chief, but also to make sure that, the questions and everything, we'll get those people who are problem solvers, who are, really, see what they're thinking, process is, and all the things in their background and whatnot. So, so on that, I guess that's the only thing I'd want to say is make sure that on step 4 that it does involve the citizens and officers and everyone to have a diverse panel. Any other comments on the steps? If not, is there a motion to go ahead and basically allow the chief to go ahead with the authorizing the police officer recruitment?
Okay,
Hey, Rosa?
I move that we accept the recommendation of the police chief to start a new recruitment process in order to establish a new eligibility list. Sorry about that.
Okay, second?
I second.
Okay, Jim, I think Jim, okay. Any more discussion on this item? Okay, all those in favor of authorizing that begin the new officer recruitment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. I think that takes care of the things from the police and fire department. That moves us to orientation binder status update. And Tom's not here, and maybe we'll go into more detail because he did the latest, but I know Sarah, you could give us probably an update on the items.
Oh, sure. I'm going to share my screen here and go right to that outline. So Mr. O'Day and Tom both worked together to create this welcome orientation binder for new PFC members. So this will be a really nice welcome for brand new members that weren't always getting all of this right at the forefront of becoming a new PFC commissioner. So everything from obviously our most recently updated PFC rules and regs to any information on Wisconsin open meetings, open record laws, emails, text communications, and what to be aware of. We'll include the union contract for police and fire, including budget information for the police and fire department, just a real basic personnel summary so that they can understand the FTE count in both departments, the last 2 annual reports, and then we'll also include the meeting minutes from the whole last year of PFC meetings. We'll include the handbook for Wisconsin PFC commissioners and the League of Wisconsin case notes related to police and fire commissions. And then I'm including lastly the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights, and then the Wisconsin statute on police and fire departments. So we hope to have this more electronic, like an electronic welcome orientation binder and not necessarily all paper. So we'll kind of package this up really nicely. And so that when we have a new member, this is something they get right away and not, 6 months later type of deal.
Okay, thank you. Are there thoughts or comments from commissioners? Well, thanks, Sarah. One thing that I thought is maybe perhaps, items 3 or 4 on there, the collective bargaining agreements, move those more at the back and the statutes maybe replace that because that's actually been good for the commissioners to know the law. But it is important to get all 14 of those items. Mm-hmm. Does anybody, this is just a discussion update. If you, as commissioners, if you think there are things that we need to add, please let Sarah, Tom, myself, submit those. Any other thoughts on the binder?
Is there anything in here that's not publicly available or publicly demonstratable?
Nope. All of this is all public. So there's nothing here that's private or is not already available to the public.
Just going towards the electronic piece, then it could just be, I don't know if there's an online place, but we could just provide this as a packet that we provide for everybody. I mean, there's no, I guess, I'm just saying that if we want to have it electronic, there's no reason why you couldn't have it on the website as, like what we do for standard training for the Police and Fire Commission members.
Yeah, we can actually put it on the PFC page that gives information of who the members are, and then we could just include it on that web page of the city website.
And then the other thing that I envision, you know, I don't know, probably, you know, 6, 8 of these, when I met with Tom, when he first started, you know, I kind of went through so that he had that. So it wasn't, you know, they had to wait until November, whenever the League of Municipalities training was. You know, I just think it's important, whoever's president of the commission, make sure that new members, that here's, you know, how we do things. Here's our limit. Here's what our authority is. You know, it's specific to these items, and how we, you know, make sure that we're doing what we can to help have the best hiring and review of police and fire actions that we can. So, any other thoughts? The PFC training discussion item. I know, Sarah, you did some research. Maybe you want to.
Yeah, that goes back to Jeff, the question he posed at the beginning. So that's the answer for, you know, right now the league didn't get back to me, and CIVMIC was the only one that said any type of, you know, hearing, due process hearing is more in closed session and is not going to be something we'll be able to access and watch. So I know that, Rosa, that was one of the things that you thought would be really helpful. You know, what we can do is look at other types of training. So we could look to see, you know, what ODA has for a due process hearing, but are there other PFC type trainings that, you know, would be useful that I could help coordinate?
Well, I thought the attorneys that get involved, if there would be a hearing, why couldn't they just come and give us a presentation of that, of the process of all of that. Sometimes, and that's why if we don't have necessarily topics to discuss at a meeting, that's something we could use that time for. I mean, it doesn't have to be to start. It doesn't have to be a full mock trial or whatever. But
Right.
they could come and give us a presentation on that particular subject.
I could get into that. I know that the PFC, I don't think that we have a budget to work with. I mean, I'm sure an attorney would cost to come and do a presentation, but I could see what that would cost and see if that's something that we could try to pull from somewhere else.
Well, the other thing we could check on, you know, there are attorneys who might do things pro bono.
Mm-hmm.
You know, from the standpoint of, you know, or, you know, Tom O'Day, you know, I mean, he may know who, you know, might, you know, be in the field who could help. Pardon?
The state, the ones that put together those trainings, they might have.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I would hope that there would be some training videos that, you know, are available. So.
I'm gonna check too.
Okay, anything else on that item? If not, announcements. One, and I guess I need to I think I forwarded it to some of you. I got to make sure all of you. I know I talked to all the other commissioners you know, via the phone. And that is, you know, I got a letter a week ago from the mayor's office asking if I was interested in reapplying for another 5-year term. I wanted to talk it over with that issue with my wife. I wanted to talk it over, you know, with other commissioners. I wanted to talk it over with the mayor, because I was leaning that, you know, I've had a good 5 years. I felt like we've done a lot of good things in the 5 years that I've been on the commission. You know, I think the commission was highly involved. I know Rosa remembers when we were going through hiring a new police chief. We, you know, wanted to make sure that we were doing right by the city, making sure that we were hiring the best person available.
We did very good.
Yeah. Anyways, I mean, because you want to be, you know, you want to be fair. You want to make sure that you do things right. And, you know, and one of the things that over the last 5 years, you know, I didn't even know about the rules that we had when I got hired. So I think we're in a much better spot. And I have lots of other citizen commitments to commissions and boards and whatnot. So I basically talked to the mayor and said, you know, probably, you know, we've got such an excellent commission right now. I think they understand what's going on. I think it's probably best for me to step down just because I think I can you know, I've had 46 years of public service. That's plenty. I know my wife would like to travel. I'd like to travel. And so my decision is actually, I'm not going to ask to another term. It also will afford the city, you know, all of you, the chiefs, you know, the mayor, everything, to get a pool of candidates to potentially apply, you know, to be a part of the commission and to look, you know, really having a strong commission with different backgrounds, different skill levels, different understandings. So anyways, that was one of my announcements I wanted to cover, and I just wanted to, you know, make sure people knew early on. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve on the commission. So, any other announcements? Okay.
Well,
Jim?
Tom,
Yep.
well,
ahead, Jim.
as people may know or not know, I am on the ballot for Alder for District 4, Seat 7. I am running unopposed. So if it comes to fruition that I am on the city council, I will have to also resign from the PFC. So I thought I would give people a heads up. And if you know some people, recruit some people to actually put in. It's a good commission. So it was, I could talk more later, but I just thought I'd give everybody a heads up.
Well, that's, you know, first of all, I'd like to say congratulations and thank you. I mean, I think anyone who runs for public office, you know, whether they, you know, are successful or not, they deserve kudos. And in your case, we are going to be lucky to have you as, or I'll be lucky to have you as my alder. So you can expect your phone to be ringing once in a while. I always want to make sure that, you know, my alder knows what I think is, you know, appropriate or not, and ways to save money and give good services. You know, that's part of what we try to do. So I appreciate your stepping up to help the city, Jim. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope I do a good job.
Oh, you will.
Yeah, I'd like to second that. Anybody that takes on the mantle of running for public office and serves in that way is definitely to be commended. So thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you both actually for being on the commission. I've learned a lot from both of you. And it's, you'll be missed for sure. Although you're not quite done yet. So,
Yeah, I know my last meeting will be in April. So, well, thanks again. Are there any other announcements or items to take up? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, Jim, I say Rose a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Hi.
Okay. Hey, stay safe, everyone. And let's continue to do the right things and figure stuff out as we move through this pandemic.